Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Well, it's not yet newspapers' time, which will come at some point on the show. But surprise, surprise, we're now being joined by the Ombudsman of This Day and Arise Media Group and This Day Newspaper Limited's Group Executive Director, Komolafe. Well, Kayode, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. We also have on the program, joining us from Benin City, Erubike Onajite Esike, Executive Director, Global Peace Development, and member, Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. Well, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us on this special coverage of the Edo election. I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Komolafe, since you're here with us in the studio. I'd love for you to help us unpack all the activities that went on yesterday during the election. I mean, I would like for you to help us rate, our next preparedness, as well as the security forces. How do you think that they fared yesterday?
Yeah,
from your observation.
I think the first thing is to say that congratulations will be in order for the Edo people, and also in a way to express satisfaction, the fact that, that elections are supposed to be festivals of democracy, and the Edo edition of that festival, took on a good note yesterday. This would be appreciated if you put in context of the fear of the Armageddon, that eroded the election. The fear, quite palpable, in the air that there will be violence, disruption, and the rest. But from all the reports, and even from the testimonies of the key players, the security aspect of it, I think there's been some kind of achievement, and I think we should commend, the security forces, for ensuring that, the election actually took place, even though there were unintended factors, that of nature, like in parts of Edo State yesterday, it rained heavily, and that disrupted, affected, the movement of people and also the takeoff into some area. But by and large, on the average, I think it would be safe to say that it was a good thing that the election, took place, in Edo State in a way that could be said, to be satisfactory. Even though, again, because of this, combination of factors, the turnout, the turnout was low, which in itself is not a tribute, to democratic development, because we said that democracy, election is the supreme will of the people, so logically, the more of the people, that are actually involved in the process, the more democratic, it becomes. So a situation whereby you have very few, a very low, turnout. On the party, that one, it's not a thing to celebrate, and that would be, a lesson, for, future election, that there is need to actually mobilize people to get people more interested in exercising their power. That is the only day the people really have the power to decide who will lead them.
All right, thank you, KK. But let's bring our guests from Benin on now, Mr. Onajite. I believe you can hear me, Mr. Onajite. Okay.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
I can hear you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's day 2, is the day after of the Edo election, and from what our analyst in the studio, our own KK, Mr. Komolafe, has said, it didn't turn out to be the predicted, Armageddon of, if you like, the do or die, in quote, that people have talked about. But from your part, from the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, what have you captured so far in terms of the conduct of the election itself, and in terms of the expectations? I'm not talking in terms of result, I'm talking in terms of the expectations, given the fact that by 10 o'clock this morning, our coalition will resume, and there will be a lot closer to knowing who the next governor of Edo State will be. So what did you unpack yesterday, and what is your Situation Room telling us?
Thank you very much for getting us to speak to you this morning. The election, like you already mentioned, had many situations and inflammatory statements before the election. So that, to some extent, deter voters from actually coming, coupled with the heavy rainfall, which of course is an act of God. But in general, in a very simple way, we would say that the election is relatively fair in the sense that in respect of the fact that there were some few challenges, and based on our observation of few compromise, we will say the election is fairly fair. That's what I'll just say. However, from the point of pool opening to arrival and opening, we found in our first preliminary engagement that some of the officials were present as at 8:30. Majority were present at 8:30 from the polling stations we actually visited, though elections did not hold or did not commence exactly 8:30 as it is expected. So that's for the election. Then for security agents, they were actually well deployed to the polling units, both with limited, let's say, lack of coordination. They are just located sitting in one place, living different units. So that's for the polling unit setup, security agencies. Then in the election proper, it has been highlighted, there's a clear voter apathy. I would not say because of the rainfall, the act of God, but I would say it is because of the suspected inflammatory statement around tension from both parties to the election. So people were very scared. Even for us who are observers, family members saying, Edo is going to be boiled. Are you still there? Are you safe? So there is a general fear expressed in form of campaign that also deterred the people. So I would not say it is the rain. No, it is purely because people were scared. And if we continue to display this kind of threats before election, the outcome definitely will be apathy.
Thank you, Mr. Onojite, for that. But looking at the broader picture, how effective do you think civil society organizations such as that have been on ground for the Edo State elections, their engagements with INEC and other electoral bodies was in terms of ensuring transparency and accountability in these elections? Were there certain areas that you think need more focus in future elections? I know that it's been relatively peaceful, but what lessons can be learned from these particular elections going forward?
So I would say, can I hear her again?
No, please
I
go.
don't seem to hear the last part of what you're asking.
Okay, I'm just asking if there are certain areas that you think or believe need more focus in future elections, looking at what you observed throughout yesterday and throughout the night.
Okay, so basically, I would say communication. Communication is key, particularly with the security agents. I remember some of our observers were in some rack and polling units where there were no actually security agents in those polling units. And they were not one of those factors that led to some of the delays, were because there were no security agents to accompanying INEC officials or ad hoc staff to polling units. And of course, that becomes very dangerous for them to go without security agents. And even where they were even present, they were almost as if they were in presence, because some of the party elements, talks as they were almost having some free day. And that's the reason why you would generally would tell you there was vote trading, vote selling, and buying.
All right.
So in my small, quick recommendation would be the communication to all the parties must be even. Particularly, for example, in a very specific one, a night before the election, when already electoral office, and we met the EU. And of course, surprisingly, in that brief, only one party was present. So, and I remember I asked her specifically, where are the other parties? And she said she called them, they never came. I'm wondering why would those who are interested in party election, in gubernatorial election, not interested in listening to the deployment process. So I feel communication is very key, and maybe one of the strategy that has not helped the process, or the approach that has not helped fairness into some of these elections.
All right, I'll bring it back to the studio here, Mr. Komolafe. You know, we've heard even from our guests over there, large reports about vote buying. I mean, we've seen social media reports, people alleging that, you know, people were buying or selling votes for as little as 5,000 naira. But I wanted to talk to you about Obaseki's arrival at the INEC Collation Center in Edo State, which Steve has raised here. And I'd love for us to discuss that, because the reports are everywhere that he had actually arrived about 3 a.m. at that point, and I believe the security forces had to take him out of there about 5 a.m. What are you hearing? Allegedly, that's the reports that we are seeing here. What are you making from these reports?
Yeah. I think this election, the election was conducted according to the law. There is a law, there are rules, you know, so if it's a game, there are rules for playing the game. The law is quite clear on who should be at the collation center, you know, at the point. All the parties, all the candidates rather, are supposed to be represented by their agents.
Yes.
Just as they were represented by the agents at the polling units. And in this election, I think PDP had the highest percentage of representation. That is about in the polling units. PDP had agents in about 98% of it, and I think I understand APC, I think about 97, and Labour. So what I'm saying is that, according to the law, PDP is already represented by its agents at the polling unit, which is the most fundamental point. I mean, that is where you actually count at the polling unit, and then you have a record of it. Now, at the collation center, also the rule is also clear about who should be there. Every candidate is supposed to be represented by its agent, the INEC officials, of course, the media, observers, the security people, and the rest of it. So, if anybody who is not accredited, who is not supposed to be at the collation center, you know, showed up at the collation center, regardless of its status, regardless of his role or this, I think that was improper. You know, I think every candidate ought to have confidence in his agent to be alert, you know, to represent it, and then to report, you know, whatever. Because you could just imagine, yes, if Obaseki decided to storm this now, what if Oshomole also decided to storm? You know, what if Peter Obi, you know, as a leader of a Labour Party, also decided to storm? You know, if Kwankwaso for the AMPP, no, so I mean, it will be a real storm. You have a real storm happening.
What do you think his fears are, Mr.
So what I'm saying that, you know, is that, you know, people should learn that, you know, the beauty, you know, the president, the rules should be obeyed, you know, by all participants, you know. And in this matter, it's quite clear. I mean, this is not the first election. If you observe, you know, any infraction of the law or any, you know, violation of the procedure, you know, I mean, the rules are, you know, about how, you know, this could, this could be. Resolved, you know. I mean, that is, if in the event, you know, there's a dispute, you know, as to the process of the election, you know, every candidate, every party has the right, you know, to, you know, follow the law in resolving it, you know. I think at this stage, you know, because it's a very critical stage, especially that you have about 14 of the local governments now, you know, having their result, and they are waiting, I think, about 4 more. And the process is supposed to resume, like reported in the earlier segment of this show, by about 10 a.m. I mean, the appeal should be to all players, you know, to keep to the rules, you know, and ensure that the election is concluded, and also to appeal, you know, to INEC, you know, to up his game and ensure that, the proper thing is done, and transparently, so that all parties, see that there is fairness in the process, and very crucially, earlier I commended the security people, that despite the reservations that we had that, that electoral process should not be so militarized, or police, but then looking back now, I think there was a sense, in ensuring that there was maximum security. So at this point too, it is very important that security people should be on alert to ensure that the venue of the collation should be well secure, and that things are done according to the law, so that you have a conclusion of the election. After that, all the parties, all the candidates, they have their right to respond appropriately, depending on their own reading of the situation.
Okay, I'll stay with you because I like the phrase that you usually use, that elections are meant to be a festival of democracy, and I think that is something that people should appreciate. Therefore, I would like to know your thoughts regarding this Edo election in terms of how the umpire, INEC, has curated, this thing, given the fact that Edo is not the first off-season election that we will have since 2023 general elections. We have had at least Kogi elections, gubernatorial, we have had Bayelsa. I believe one other ones. There are a few local government stuff still coming on soon. There's a campaign going on in Anambra, for example. So when you look at it from the point of view of a festival of democracy, it's not meant to be perfect. We can see what is going on in America, all the brickbats, all the name calling, mudslinging and everything. It's not perfect because human beings are not perfect. But then we can see some deliverables. What will be your thought as to the methods that INEC has adopted over time as against what other people, and we had an analyst here yesterday, proposing a return to option A4, for example?
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. I think if you permit, I would like also to amplify the point you made. That when we do this kind of review on any election, either at national level or an off-season election subnational, there is this tendency for us to engage in what I call self-flagellation. And that is, by this idealism of thinking that you can have a perfect election. There's nowhere in the world where election is conducted, perfectly. So there's no, so people should not that illusion that you can have a perfect election. But what we should insist upon is that the conduct of every election should be an improvement on the previous one. Yeah. That progress should be made, should be made as fair as possible. We should increase it, and then if there are errors, learn from previous election. It should not be repeated again. It should be improved so that in the course of political evolution, we'll be witnessing democratic development. I think that is the point. So the idea of that because people are interested, have a legitimate interest in an election, they have to come with this idealistic proposition of thinking that no mistake should be made. Then INEC now becomes a super as if INEC is those who are in charge of INEC are superhuman beings that will conduct in a perfect way. So we should know that. But that is, like you said, this should be emphasized. It's not to excuse any avoidable error that is being committed or a deliberate attempt to falsify the process. But like you said, moving forward, talking about option A4, I think, like I said, we should see it within the context of the political evolution of Nigeria. Because, like it's always said, that people celebrate the June 12, 1993 presidential election. But yes,
I can read your mind.
But does it occur to you that there is no chairman of Federal Electoral Commission in Nigeria that has been celebrated? Yes, when people talk about this, has anybody mentioned Professor Humphrey Nwosu? who conducted it? Yes. Because the whole thing, I mean, it's the whole thing. I mean, because that formula, you know, that you're showing for, you know, it was I mean, a professional political scientist, you know. So it was a creation, you know. So if you are talking of, you know, an original political thought, you know, added into the you know, to the science of election in Nigeria, it was possible, you know. But nobody remembers, you know. I mean, people have been given honors, people have been eulogized, but it was now. Therefore, the challenge will be that within the democratic space, you know, I think it would be a legitimate thing to have a debate, you know, as to if we could have, you know, a review, you know, of it, you know, because left to me, the idea of option A4, you know, to me, may be a more reliable thing, you know, than all these mystification of technology, you know. I mean, because again, that's another aspect.
Really?
Because, yes, because when we talk of technology and all this and this thing, we will talk about it as if it's a perfect thing, that, you know, as if technology cannot fail. Technology fails. That is the reality. I mean, it is not also immune, you know, for manipulation. You know, it can be manipulated. Any computer system, I mean, can be manipulated. I mean, that's what we call hacking and the rest. You know? So I'm just saying that. I mean, but then the thing is, you can juggle all the options, you know. But I think with what we have witnessed, you know, especially, you know, since the last year election, like you said, the off-cycle election that we had at that time, like INEC has improved, you know, in the deployment of technology, you know. So if you will, I think the way forward will be to perfect, you know, to say our INEC, you know, can improve, you know, in the deployment of technology, you know, rather than option A4, because option A4. Don't forget that. I mean, you have the human, the human element, you know. Now you are talking of you know, people actually, you know, lining, more or less lining up behind their candidates. So with this tension, you know, violence, you know, and the rest, you know, I mean, things might not be manageable, you know, on the part of security. But then definitely it's a thing to reflect upon, you know, and debate, you know, the different options.
Mr. Keke. But let's take it back to Benin, where we still have Mr. Onojite. And you know, looking at the angle from the Nigerian, you know, civil society, there have been reports that local government Collation Center observers indicated, and this is a report from Yaga Africa, who was also on ground. Observers and INEC officials were being tear-gassed in the Ikpoba-Oka area. And also they emphasized that in the collating LGA results at the state headquarters in Ikpoba and Oka, and the state headquarters violated the established procedure for results collation. Now, there's a particular statement that has gone out urging INEC Nigeria to, of course, stand firm against intimidation and interference. I'd like to know, as someone who is on ground and has been monitoring this very closely, if you can confirm this report about what happened in Ikoba and Oka, saying that INEC officials were actually being tear-gassed.
Well, I cannot confirm this, but I can confirm there's high level of impunity in Ikpoba. Of course, you saw that EFCC operatives actually arrested people. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Onojite.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I cannot confirm that report from Yaga Africa, but I can confirm to you Ikpoba-Oha was actually very partially violent in terms of electoral malpractices, in terms of security, in terms of resistance for arrest. So those are things I can confirm, but I don't know whether Collation Center will. I don't think I have that information that since INEC with tear gas. So the question would be, if at all INEC as well as tear gas, who did the tear gassing? Is it the security agents or another security agencies? That's what I can't confirm. But like I said before, the security situation in Pubaha was not very palatable because many actors were trying to do things their way. And in some of those cases, people even had to vote without the accreditation card. They do not have their voter's card with them. And so those are some of these problems you may have in that, but I can't confirm that there was tear gas or INEC security, or INEC and security agents. I don't have that information.
Well, all right. Mr. Komolafe, we'll continue with you here in the studio. I'd love for you, I wanted to talk more on that option A4.
Yeah.
You know that I'm all about transparency and accountability. And you know, you are of the impression that it will be of no use for us to return back to the open ballot system. Is that correct?
No, I've not said that exactly. No, I'm saying that it's a legitimate option.
It's a legitimate option, yeah.
on the table, and that when we're making a review, because I mean it's a dynamic thing, and that is why you see there is since 1999 we have been having amendments to the electoral law, and the purpose of it is to ensure that you improve on the process when you observe an error or a default, at a point in the process. You try to correct it, in an amendment. So I think the debate, continues. So I'm saying that option A4 is a legitimate option, on the table,
right.
And that also should be considered along other
options.
Yes,
because for me, I thought it was.
Because for instance,
yes.
okay, if you see option A4 is at one end of the spectrum, At the other end, it's even has the most sophisticated people are actually suggesting electronic voting. Other people confuse that because we have a higher rep on beavers. I mean, that doesn't make electronic voting. Like, there is no electronic voting yet in Nigeria. But there are people who feel that, that perhaps in a more sophisticated way we could have electronic voting. Yeah. So you may say that while option A4 is on one side of the spectrum, on the other side, in terms of sophistication, in terms of the application of technology, it's also electronic voting, which also I would concede is a legitimate option. That could be considered, Yeah. So I think as we move, we should see it, we should see it within the context of political evolution.
Yes.
That we have not yet reached a perfect stage, but the purpose of life is to aspire, to the ideal, to perfection, by improving, relatively, that what we do today relatively should be better than what we did yesterday. And what we will do tomorrow, we should plan to make it to be better than what we are doing it now. So from that evolutionary point of view, I think it's well to consider. But I'm just trying to say that that the beauty, the success of June 12, 1993 presidential election, that there is no way you can analyze it and then you not put in the factor of the efficacy of at that point that it worked, Yeah.
All right, we have Mr. Onojite back. I hope you can hear me this time around. We're aware, of course, that you have to go to the Collation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. You have to go to the Collation Center, but of course there are a few more, maybe one or two more questions from our side to you before you go. And one key area that I would like you to talk about will be what the Edo election of yesterday has reminded us about, which will have to do with the weaponization of poverty. We have heard, and we saw that EFCC also, took in a few people, arrested a few people for vote buying, those who were engaging in it. We've also heard about bread and gala, being offered to potential voters. I think there is also a report from DIG Frank Ba saying that most of these alleged vote buys do take place behind the scene, and it will be difficult for the police to totally deal with such a thing. I'd like you, therefore, to talk about the weaponization of poverty, because when people talk of grassroots in Nigeria, they're talking about people who are not even earning the minimum wage, people that 5,000, 10,000 will appeal to. People that a loaf of bread and gala will appeal to. And therefore, they become easy targets during elections. Is this good for our democracy? A festival of democracy that election is supposed to be. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with you that weaponizing poverty is a strategy used by the political actors because they think that's the only way they can get people to vote. But one major factor is that it is not just the poverty that is the problem. It's about contentment. Even after elections for 4 years is 1,460 days. So assuming you get 10,000, which is the highest I heard about, for the elections, what happened in the next 1,459 days? So the question is not about hunger or poverty. It is because people feel the election process is a process of making money. Otherwise, if there are people who did not collect 1 naira, they voted and even stood to ensure their votes were counted. People have not actually understood that the election to government and governance opportunity is to manage their commonwealth. Once people understand that, they will begin to get out of taking money. The politicians also know that people need those money. They also, otherwise, sometimes many factors are there. So if you look at the multi-dimensional poverty index, look at many factors. The economy is not working. People are not, you can't even buy food to some extent. I'm not saying some people are not appealed to vote against their conscience because they are hungry, but majority, that should not be a factor. We should begin to talk of contentment so that people can vote and ignoring those money. And we've seen other elections where people did not take money and those elections were very free. So if people keep taking money, then there's no need to campaign, prepare the money to the last 3 days of the election, and go and use the election. But one thing is clear. The vote buying, the agents of the parties have not actually been very effective. That's the truth. In some of the poll units, you can't even find some party agents. I can tell you in our report, we have maybe 47% or so for APC, 25 for PDP, and a PROP 5, and that going down. So there's a problem. And I cannot also tell you that the vote buying is actually right in the field, not behind the scene. It's very easy to know those who are buying votes. They write in their notes, get people to go to the place, so it's very easy. So how can we stem vote buying? It's just to get security agents to be in the scene. After all, we deployed 40,000 security agents to do election using Nigerian police. How many actually went to each unit? Some units have many people, many security agents, some never even had. So if they can go with Mufti and look at who is who, the major problem is impunity. Impunity in all ramifications. If people want to stay, like you mentioned before, staying by the rule, ensuring due process, we won't be here. People feel the election process is a period to make money. That's the problem. So contentment, so even at the end of the political party leaders or those politicians, people who are expected to vote for the electorate also see it is time to get money from them. They now begin to go with so many problems, so many challenges, and they have to solve them before the election. So it's a multi-layer corruption that is affecting the electoral process.
All right, is how far to go before the collation starts, Mr. Onojite, and I'm aware, of course, that you are on your way there shortly. What will be your expectations? What are the things that you expect INEC to stick to in collating the results from all the 18 local governments and 4,519 units in Edo State? How will you want that collation process to go, leading to the announcement of the result that everybody has been waiting for?
For me, every polling unit results to collation centers, to local government that will be presented for during the collation should be what was signed for by the party agents. Any mutilated results should not be accepted. When people have concerns and complaints, their concerns should be reviewed before asking them to say go to court. Go to court is another element of using the judicial system to actualize your goal. So it's not like a cover to say, okay, I have done this through impunity. You can go ahead and do this, go to court and challenge the process. So for me, collate the right results that people sign at the different levels of election so that it will become fair and transparent to everybody. Credible election does not mean voting alone. How were these results collated? The actual will of the people, did it reflect in what is submitted? Are there results that were inflated from the original results? Any result that is mutilated should not be accepted at all. I think that's fair. And they should also be able to confirm those that were actually captured from the beavers vis-a-vis votes before they actually enter them, to be sure that they tally. Because sometimes when you see overvoting, of course, that particular unit and that word, in most cases, if the word is overbloated, should be cancelled. So when the units and results are cancelled because of mutilation, I'm sure it will show political parties to adhere to the process, or those who are in. But the truth is, if INEC is truly very transparent, both the ad hoc staff would never accept mutilated results because they never submitted mutilated results. So if party A, B, C, D have authentic results that were signed, that result should be what should be used, and there should be evidence presented by the coalition officers of different parties to show their concern why such things need to be addressed before it is imputed into the general state results.
Yes, and it's good that you have highlighted that. You know, as a journalist, I was able to go into the IREV viewing portal, and I did see those results that were transmitted from the polling unit. So it is important to make sure that these collation or the voters, their voices are being heard. But there's also the issue of voter apathy. I wanted your sense in terms of all the political parties. I mean, we're seeing reports, I believe some reports have indicated that, you know, the Labour Party had some sort of poor turnout. And we also saw reports saying that Olumide Akpata had lost his polling unit in Oredo ward to Aswe Igodalo. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, I just want to say that it is possible a candidate loses his polling unit, but that does not mean the candidate may not win election. It is possible his messages were not accepted by his polling unit, and that could be a factor. But remember, like I said before, and which have been echoed by other actors or observers in the field, vote buying was very prominent in this election. Vote trading was very prominent. And the willing sellers also are valuable, and these are the problems. So how did those cash and how this can be monitored? Technology, let me just, I don't miss it. Technology is actually strong enough to ensure credible election. What is missing is the integrity of the actors, or rather the umpire, to ensure transparency and accountability in the process. Some of the, they are at the helm of affairs, maybe at the rec level, the the person in charge of announcing the pulling coalition officers and the different groups. But how about the ad hoc staff, where, because the major changer for the election is at the polling unit. Once the polling unit results have been altered, or there's a fraud in the process in terms of manipulation, vote suppression, intimidation at the polling area, the result will reflect. And remember, we've not talked about talks. There are a lot of talks in most of those communities. This is very, very important to highlight. So we don't know who has more talks, and the talks play a lot of role to intimidate those who really want to come and cast their votes.
All right, then, thank you, Mr. Onojite. I'd like to bring it back to the studio here with Mr. Keke, and we've touched on so many things that have, of course, happened during this Edo State elections. But I want to just touch on something that has made the rounds to get your opinion, which is the rec in Edo State, Dr. Asubom Onoha, who is Wike's cousin. He had come out to say that being his cousin doesn't disqualify him from being an INEC official. And we've had several civil society organizations come out to say that there is a bit of conflict of interest in that particular scenario. I'd like to know what your thoughts are about it.
If you permit, let me just say something about this vote buying.
No problem.
I think
including the bread and gala aspect of it.
Correct. Now, can we look at it from this perspective?
Yes.
First of all, let us throw aside the euphemism, what you call vote buying. In law, what you're talking about is bribe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is a crime in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So it's euphemism, calling it vote buying or whatever. You are talking about bribe. Yeah, you bribe somebody to vote. That is what you are talking about. So if we take it from that way, that you say, we are talking of a crime. So it's not a thing that you sermonize about. If a crime is committed, the important thing is that the suspect, should be apprehended, and the law should take its course. And we don't, like in previous election, in this election, EFCC, ICPC, they are also at work. So what we will expect is that those who have been, if people have committed, the crime of bribing, in which case both the giver and the receiver, will be deemed to be suspects, in the matter, should be prosecuted. So it could have been better that if, for example, maybe starting with this Edo election, that if at the end of the election we heard that people are actually prosecuted, either for giving bribe, for vote or accepting bribe. I think that would be a more productive way of doing it, rather than this, which is the aspect I object to, this idea of denigrating the electorate. I think we are in the media we are doing it. For instance, it's not everybody yesterday who left his heart and killed to vote in Edo State that got bribed from anybody. The people who, there are maybe majority of the people actually went to go and exercise their franchise without this. But when you just talk about it, that what took place there was vote buying or whatever, you are not being fair to people who actually did the normal thing, who did not ask for bribe from anybody, and who were not offered any bribe, and who did not take a bribe. So we have to distinguish between that what you are talking about is a question of exception to the rule, in which some people are alleged to have committed the crime of bribing the electorate and also accepting the bribe. But I'm saying that it is not everybody who goes to vote who accepts a bribe. So to now characterize a whole process as that, I think it's unfair. That's number one. The second point I'd like to make too is that you see the way we idealize our democratic process, which is self-flagellation, as a people we will, in trying to be, it's good to be self-critical, but then it's not good to engage in self-flagellation. What is this thing about gala and dress? In the last election, let me tell you, here in Lagos, let me know, in some elite area, after voting, people actually had canopy, very close to the head.
Before and after.
Voting, and they wanted to watch it, and people brought in the food and drinks. I'm talking in an area that you cannot say that it's poverty because you're talking of weaponization for this. I'm talking of a place where poverty is alien to them. That you cannot say that they are poor. And anybody who is living in that neighborhood, you cannot call him to be a poor person. So people, friends, neighbors, so like I said,
isn't there a difference between those two scenarios?
No. But what I'm saying that even in the poor area, yes. I'm saying that we are unduly denigrating the poor. That's what I'm saying. That we unduly denigrating the poor. In the American election, in the last British election, I saw it. People served snacks. Yes, now and again there are a lot of things we're also confusing about monetization of politics. Yes. If you say somebody should be your agent, in this area, and that person leaves Benin, he goes to out to go, to go be an agent, you know. Now, if you make provision, you know, for his lunch, or you are taking lunch to him, what is criminal about it, you know? And I'm saying that if people say, okay, they want to stay back, you know, to watch, you know, what is going on, yes. And people, you know, share snacks and drinks. What is criminal? I'm saying that what I'm saying is that yes, there's a difference, but we must not unduly generalize, and we must not denigrate the poor.
Yes.
You know, I mean, because the pressure is being given that, you know, because a poor man can vote, he must collect money. And I'm saying that there are a lot of poor people who vote and do not collect any money. Nobody, I mean, maybe even in the distribution of the money, I mean, the money, you know, I mean, it does not get to them. So we must protect, you know, the dignity of the human person of these people, you know, in this, you know, kind of, blanket analysis, you know, of just saying that, you know, vote buying. So I'm saying that don't call it vote buying. It's bribe. If you have evidence that somebody has committed that crime, let that person be apprehended by the law enforcement agencies.
All right.
That is the job of EFCC and then be taken to court.
All right.
And finally,
Mr. Komolafe, I'd love for you to hold your thoughts here, because we're here for a while, and you're going to be staying with us through the course of this program. We're going to have a lot more time to discuss this.
Now that you've kidnapped me, I'm not
excited. No, but you know, so you'll stay with us today. Okay.